It has come to my attention there is this new Bond game, came out relatively recently. I went to Steam to check it out and I don't know about you guys, but when I saw this, I had a hunch this is not going to be a very good experience. However, that also sparked my curiosity to see if my hunch was accurate and lo and behold, I was right. Let's unpack it. As soon as I booted up the game, I saw the first problem. I mean, it's right there in your face, you cannot really avoid it. As you can see, this is how Bond looks like. Now, I understand we're talking about young Bond, but that is a whole another problem in itself, which I'm going to unpack later. Here, I'm pretty much talking about my first impression of the character, the way it looks, which is basically what carries the whole franchise. And, I mean, just look at that face and that hideous scar. And I shit you not, first thing that came to my mind is that this is fucking Henry of Skalitz. And would you look at that, I was actually right. To put it plain and simple, this isn't Bond. Not in a million years can this guy be Bond. And what I did was a very simple exercise. I put faces of all the Bond actors from the movies in the AI and told it to make him in his 20s, and this is what came out. I mean, seriously, are the devs taking the piss? Me, a common pleb, with the help of AI, can design a better, more handsomer young Bond. Well, fuck me. The only question that comes to mind is, how can you mess this up? And what's even worse, this game took 7 years to develop. 7 years. And this is the best you can do? Amazing. Anyway, it's pretty obvious to me this is not a James Bond game. I mean, you fucked up the most important element of the whole franchise. And just because it has 007 plastered all over it doesn't make it a Bond game. You had one fucking job to nail James Bond the proper way. And the best thing that you can do is give us fucking Jamie Bend. This alone shatters the whole Bond experience for me because when I look at this guy, it's just some kind of a random twerp who is pretending to be Bond. It's as simple as that. Now, I know what you might say. It's very hard to find an actor that looks like my AI picture. Yeah, I definitely agree with this. But we are talking about a game, not a movie. You can do motion capture and voice acting with whoever you want, but you just put that face mask over them and that's it, you won the game. You don't need to copy-paste the voice actor's likeness. And there are plenty games to prove it. That's the beauty of video games, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But for some reason they decided to use the face of the voice actor, so yeah, pretty much they put themselves in a corner and that's basically that. But enough how James Bond looks like, or in my case, Jamie Bend. Let's talk about story and gameplay. And if you think things are better in this department, no, they're definitely not. Let's start with the story first. In my opinion, it has several problems. First problem is the initial pacing. You pretty much have 2 tutorials. Why? No freaking clue why. I mean, I know why. It's because the whole thing is set up really fucking bad. This part of the game drags too much, and while I was initially invested a bit, I just wanted to get rid of that section as soon as possible. Also, during that initial stages of the game, you figure out how Jamie Bend becomes MI6 operative alongside with his buddies, and this, by far, is the most laughable thing ever. He is just some random dude who is an ordinary Navy serviceman. Has no prior training in anything more complex, at least from what I can tell. And suddenly, in just 6 months, he becomes a field operative? Really? This is what you conjured? Wouldn't it be better if he was some kind of a special forces guy who has a really good mindset for these things and that kinda attracts the attention of MI6? Or maybe because he's handling various situations in his unorthodox way? Apparently not, because of all the possible backstories, I think the devs picked the most ridiculous one. And speaking about him being some random dude, as soon as he stepped into MI6, they pretty much showed him everything. And I'm not talking about Q's workshop or stuff like that. I'm talking about mega, giga, ultra secret things that should not be shown to a fresh recruit in any way, shape or form. When I saw what was happening, I immediately screamed saying, why the fuck are you showing him these things? He's fucking nobody. I guess MI6 lowered their standards so much, just like gamers these days who are tolerating this fucking nonsense. Then we have the problem with story being too predictable. I might be too perceptive for my own good, so that might be my fault, but as soon as I've seen certain characters and I was introduced to certain plot elements, I immediately knew how things are gonna unfold. There is no significant mystery, no significant plot twists, nothing of the sorts. Nothing memorable really. You just go through the story, you do stuff, that's about it. However, now that I think about it, there was one moment in the story that was kinda, I didn't expect that, but the whole thing felt like it was mega convenient to drop into the story, like Deus Ex Machina moment. Which then makes it pretty damn cheap, because that particular plot thread could have been solved in so many ways that are much better instead of, pushing you on this wild goose chase. Also, you know what's really funny? The last 3 hours of the game felt like they were dragging so much. I just wanted to finish it and be done with it. And it wasn't a very long story, mind you. It took me around 15 hours to complete. One would think, because of the length, that it would be important to make an effort in order for the story to be more interesting and memorable, but apparently that wasn't the case. Next problem are the boss fights. It has been some time before I experienced boss fights this fucking bad. And I'll give you a concrete example. So our boy, Jamie Bend, ends up fighting this highly trained assassin in this warehouse or whatever. And in order to defeat him, you pretty much have to use environment to stun him 3 times, and then you sort of finish him like he is some sort of a muppet. Also, if you get caught by him, he shoots you, but you can run away from him like a pleb, and that's about it. And the same gimmick happens again at the end of the game. And I gotta say, I was pretty much shocked when I saw this. I actually thought this was some kind of a joke, but oh no. It was 100% serious business. These bloody boss fights felt dated and awkward, like I've gone back in time, somewhere around PS2, PS3 era. And speaking about bosses, there's a situation where you kill this boss dude by yeeting him off a significant height and then dropping 24 or so heavy steel pipes on him. And I was like, okay, he's done and done. And then this motherfucker comes back, being cybernetically enhanced or all that nonsense, and you gotta fight him again. I mean, I swear to God, you cannot make this shit up. There are other issues with the story, and I could talk about this for hours, but to conclude, I would say overall, the story is below average, almost poor. There are times where it makes no sense whatsoever, and there are times when it tries to do something, but ultimately it falls flat. And the funny thing about this whole situation, I didn't have any expectations whatsoever, and I still got fucking disappointed. Okay, enough about the story. Let's talk about gameplay elements. First one is combat. You have fist fighting, aka melee, and gunplay. When it comes to melee combat, you've seen it once, you've seen all of it. If you see yellow flash, you parry, and if you see red flash, you dodge. Very fucking basic. Animations are always the same, and basically there isn't a lot of variation to begin with. The biggest problem is the camera. If you happen to hug a corner during fisticuffs, you cannot see shit. It's a pretty bland and basic system as far as I can tell. Gunplay on the other hand is okayish. You have several rifle and handgun variants, so not great, not terrible. You can use cover, but not very effectively because the enemies are more often than not destroying it, so you are always on the move. That isn't a problem by itself because it kinda makes the combat more fluid. The problem, however, is the plot armor. Jamie Bend has plenty of it. Now, I know what you might say. Every Bond has plot armor, which is true, but this much? Absolutely fucking not. This motherfucker can tank some serious fucking damage, regenerates his health like he is a Wolverine, and on top of that, shows no signs of going through hell and back. Which is also another problem when it comes to any realism or believability of the character. I can understand there should be some wiggle room, but this much is completely detrimental to the character, as well as to the plot. You wouldn't notice this if the game wasn't throwing waves of enemies at you on a regular basis, but that's a thing in this game. Wave after wave after wave. Initially, I was okay with it because the waves kinda felt smaller, but then the game started overdoing it to a point where you are fighting, 20 dudes times 3, which is 60 people, one wave after another. And that's also another point when I was talking about how he got trained in 6 months, because if this guy can beat all those elite mercenaries after only 6 months of combat training, then there is something seriously fucking wrong with this game. And since we are talking about this particular subject, I know how he can do it, because the enemy AI is dogshit. There are so many examples of this, but my favorite is me fighting 3 dudes in the basement. You know, we are kicking each other, we are wrecking each other, everything that you can possibly imagine to no end. And I can clearly see 2 guards down the corridor just chilling next to the door, doing absolutely fucking nothing. And nobody can tell me there is no way in hell they cannot see what the fuck is happening in front of them. And that's the level of bad we are talking about here. As you might expect, there are driving sections, or like I would say, car chases, but it's pretty bad. I didn't expect tons of freedom in that sense, but the car handling, that was something that I certainly was expecting to be good. The reality, however, is pretty different. Cars handle like a log. No finesse, no nothing. And at that point, it would be better if it was on rails, because this is just ridiculous. One would expect to have interesting car chases like in the movies, but nope. Ain't gonna happen here. Pretty much you just press forward or W on your keyboard. Maybe here and there you press left, right. There is this handbrake option, but more often than not, because of the handling, you just slam into the walls left, right, and center, but miraculously, you can always finish the car chases. And it looks absolutely fucking pathetic. Also, I've noticed another thing in this game. Why the fuck are there so many cliff-hanging, traversing, and platforming sections? James Bond isn't fucking Nathan Drake. Have you ever seen in any Bond movie extensive climbing the way it was done in this game? No, because he isn't that type of a character. So why are you shoving that stuff down our throats? I could endure some of it, but this is a continuous theme. It's virtually impossible to have a level where this isn't the case. And you know what's even funny? Even in the game they're like joking, ha ha ha, they should have gave us a grappling hook, ha ha ha. Fuck off, game. Now, since this is a game from a studio that gave us Hitman franchise, one would expect there would be some elements of that franchise in the game. And sure enough, the elements are there, but it feels like they simplified them. One example is the blue/yellow paint, indicating where you should go. There's no other way of saying it, it's classical hand-holding if you ask me. Interestingly enough, using Q-Watch, which is pretty much your X-ray vision tool, isn't that problematic to me. But perhaps it would be better without it, or rather, it shouldn't be that aggressive, but the painted signage oversaturating the environment really spoils the experience. And since I'm touching on this X-ray vision thing, I mean, I get it. You need to know where enemies are, and that's the reason why we have X-ray vision in the first place in these types of games, but one must wonder, is it really necessary to implement it to that extent? Maybe a smaller circle around the player would be more acceptable instead of me seeing the whole fucking level and everything there is on the particular area where I am in. Whatever may be the case, this thing about X-ray vision, we can debate a lot about it, so if you are interested to see my opinion in depth, post your comments down below about the whole situation. Since we are talking about Hitman elements in this game, I would say that throughout my playthrough, it seemed like there are several ways to complete the mission that was laid in front of me, but I never felt there are more than 2 options available to me. I would have to dive deeper into the levels to confirm or deny my claims, but after finishing the game, I really don't see myself replaying this thing ever again. Another party pooper to this whole formula is the gadget limitation. You are limited by 2, and later 3 gadgets out of 6 or 7 of them or something like that. And frankly, I absolutely do not understand why. Why would you impose this limit? Why aren't you letting me enjoy myself and experiment with the available arsenal? And if some of you want to suggest me to replay the missions with a different gadget loadout, to that I say not a bloody chance. But then it hit me. The only ones that you need are the laser for opening stuff and dart for stunning, and that's basically it. So that means that the rest of them are completely fucking pointless and virtually unnecessary. And that's a shame, because you could do so many things with the gadgets, but at the end of the day, at least in my opinion, you always go for the things that open door instead of the ones that are somewhat offensive. And to me, this truly is a missed opportunity. Imposing these limitations for absolutely no reason whatsoever is always a bad thing. Now, some of you might say that this game is mega bad on every single front, but there are some things that this game does well. For example, the locations that you visit are pretty damn amazing. That really gives you Bond vibes, and I think that this is the best aspect of the game. Same goes for the soundtrack, but you cannot really fuck that up. Also, the game looks good, the visuals are pretty damn amazing, but that's not hard to achieve these days. And it would be a shock if the game looked like dog shit. And to finish, I didn't encounter any bugs, and the game ran really well for the most part. Oh, and before I forget, the game has this tag sim mode. Yeah, I don't see myself ever playing that stuff. It's pretty much campaign stuff being done all over again with some modifiers and challenges and stuff like that. I see absolutely no point in doing this, and if this was one of the selling points of the game, well, tough luck. So, when all is said and done, I find this game to be below average, and this is me being fucking generous. Very generous. Like I said in the beginning, this is not a James Bond game for me. This is a Jamie Benn game. Think of it like James Bond from Wish.com. I thought IO Interactive would do a much better job when it comes to stealth aspects of the game, especially since the game was, 7 years in development? And more importantly, the story as well as the main character itself feel like a cheap ripoff, and the Bond name is used only to make a quick buck because of the popularity of the franchise. And I would say 100% this game is not worth $70. No way in hell. For that price, you can get much more for a variety of other games, and if you're lucky, for that price you can get 2 games that are superior to this one. Fuck me, I didn't expect anything and I still got disappointed. But at the end of the day, that's just my take. If you managed to get this far, let me know in the comments what you think about this whole situation. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And that's it from me, until the next one.